Podcast 30. Today is story time. I'm going to talk about Zillow versus reality. How one of my past clients lost $200,000 because he believed Zillow was accurate. What's up, guys? Park with Realtor story time. So, in going through all of our end of year stuff and closing out our files, I was reminded today of a client from about 18 months ago, right before rates went up, that refused to believe me and the data and instead went by what Zillow said. So I was selling this person's house, and we had listed it at a certain price, okay? Or let me phrase that. We had recommended we listed at a certain price. Well, of course, Zillow had it listed for $200,000 more. Now, it was completely wrong. And the reason it was wrong was because this was a neighborhood that the neighborhood he lived in were smaller houses surrounded by bigger houses. So if you know anything about the algorithm of Zillow, it takes an average of the area, the neighborhood. It doesn't take into account condition, pools, solar panels, upgrades, things like that. So it took an average and it came up with a price of X. Well, X was $200,000 more than his house was really worth. That's a big difference. We went back and forth. And they had to sell their house because they were buying a new one, but they had about 7 months before the new one was built, so they had time. So after going back and forth, he refused to believe me. So what I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I will list it at your price. And if we have no action in 30 days, then we will consider and look at the data that I have. And he said, fair enough. So we did that. Did the open houses, did the videos, did everything. Not one call was generated. Nothing. And every week I would update him. Nothing and nothing. So 30 days go by, nothing. He doesn't want, I broached the subject. He doesn't want to change the price. I said, okay. At this time, rates are still about 4.5, I think. About 4.5. So rates are still relatively low. So his thinking was rates are low. Somebody's going to buy and they're going to overpay and I'm good. Because that's what's happened years prior. But I told him that market was no longer there. It wasn't that type of market. And the data reflected that. Well, what ended up happening was that we got an offer 60 days into it for about $180,000 less. To me, it was a solid offer. To them, it was an insult. They were way off. So they countered, and the counter was pretty much the same price. We went back and forth for a few days. We lost that deal. They finally decided to drop the price $50,000 4 months into it because now they're getting a little desperate because remember, they bought a house that's being built and they got to have their house sold by a certain time. He still won't drop it $200,000. He drops it $50,000. Nothing. One call, I think. Month 5 drops at $25,000. Nothing. Still won't take my advice. Still won't do anything. Well, right about that time, 2.5 months before his house was due to be built, guess what happens? Due to inflation, the Fed decides to increase the prime rate, which in turn, mortgage rates shoot through the roof to 7%. Now, whatever little market was left is put on hold. Everybody now is waiting to see what's going to happen due to the fact that what? Rates were now. Well, now we're really screwed because rates have almost doubled and his house is up over $1 million. Even in California, that's still a lot of money. Nothing. His house, I start getting calls from the agent on the house that's being built. They're starting to put pressure, like, we need you to sell your house. So 6 months in, he finally decides to drop it to $200,000 to the $200,000 price point that I had started 6 months earlier. But by here, it's too late. The market's pretty much come to a stop. Home values ain't dropping, but nobody's buying. And he's under a time crunch. So we have no buyer for his house. He's got a very massive deposit on his house that's being built. The house is finally adjusted to the price that it should be adjusted to. But now the rates are 7%, 7.25%. I mean, our hands are tied. A month later, we get an offer for $100,000 less than it's listed. Now, for the first time, I could tell him this offer is underpriced. In other words, this offer is asking for a $100,000 discount. But my client is so desperate, he's willing to consider it. And we go back and forth with negotiations, and guess what? He does. When it was all said and done, he had lost about $180,000 between repairs, the $100,000 break. He was hoping they would pay for the solar. They did not qualify. So he had to pay off the solar, which was like $38,000. He lost all that. And why? Greed? I mean, sellers want to make more and buyers want to pay less. I get it. But data is data. And it's our job to interpret and know what's going on. And when you don't listen to us, there's consequences to it. I mean, I'm not perfect. 90%, 95% of the time, things go as I planned, as I expected, based on what the market says. Every once in a while, someone shows up and you're like, what? You just don't get it. But hey, it is what it is. So I felt pretty confident about this. He was not happy. He was very upset. He ended up getting his new house. I didn't want to tell you, I told you so, because he was very upset. But I didn't have to. His wife did. When they moved into their new house, I went to go give him a gift to their new house. And I mean, he was happy that he got his new house. It's a beautiful house. But he was still upset about that. And I remember him telling me, saying, I can't believe this. And I was like, well, unfortunately, the market spoke. And you were in the wrong price point. Moral of the story is this, guys. If you have a good realtor and he has data to support what he's saying, listen. Now, if a realtor or agent just says drop the price because he wants to be lazy and just sell your house, that's different. But if he says, hey, this is what the market's showing. Here's the data. Hey, in a month, here's how much calls, emails, and information I've gotten requested on your house. Nothing. In an area where the days on market are 10, meaning in 10 days, all the houses sell in that neighborhood. Put all this together, that's data. That's not me. Listen to your realtor. If he's good, listen to him. Because that's what we do. We take data and we interpret it into knowledge. So you can make a decision that's best for you and your family.